All right, hello again, and welcome back to week 28 of year 3 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 2. So last time we saw Saint Theophan's initial advice about how to bring prayer out of the limited space of our mornings and our evening prayers and into our everyday pastimes. He exhorted us to call out to God all the time as we face each task and challenge of the day. We saw especially how he urged that we should not just pray in word, but in truth, earnestly seeking the Lord's help and mercy in everything that we face, as though that honest cry for help is squeezed out of our soul, he said. Now this time he will give us a second way in which we may bring prayer into every moment of our lives. So he says, but before we can make the soul appeal to God in this way, it first must be made to turn everything to the glory of God, to attribute to him our every activity, large or small. This is the second method. This is how to teach the soul to turn to God as often as possible during the day. If we give ourselves the task of fulfilling the apostolic commandment to do everything to the glory of God, as St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10:31, even eating and drinking, then we will inevitably remember God whatever we do, and this not simply but with circumspection, taking care that we do not act wrongly and do not trespass against God in any deed. In turn, this will make us turn to God in fear and to beg for his help and enlightenment. Then, because we are almost constantly doing something or other, we will find ourselves almost constantly turning to God in prayer. And in this, we will be constantly practicing the art of uplifting the soul prayerfully towards God. But so that the soul may do this as it ought, doing all things to the glory of God, it must be directed towards this from early morning onwards, from the very beginning of the day, before you go about your everyday business. Then it may last until evening. This mood is induced by meditation on divine things, and this is the third method of training the soul to turn more frequently towards God. Meditation is a reverent reflection on godly attributes and actions, and on what our glimpses of them demand of us. There can be reflection on the goodness of God, on his justice, his wisdom, his might, his omnipotence, on his providence, on his dispensation to save us through the incarnation, on his mercy, on his word, on the holy sacraments, on the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Now, St. Theophan kind of shifts very quickly from his second methods to his third, so we'll actually reread this final paragraph next time. But what he says here, remember last time he said, whatever you do, wherever you go throughout the day, cry out to God, asking for help, asking for mercy, offering each thing verbally to God as you go through the day. That makes sense. Then he says, but that's difficult to do. We can't do that unless our soul has already learned to turn everything over to the glory of God. So he's saying we can't do that truly. We can say the words, but our soul won't mean it unless we've already committed our entire life to God, until we're doing everything to the glory of God as we're commanded in the scripture. So he says this is something that we can do. We can build the habit. He says effectively, when you say your prayers, then when you leave your prayers, you should immediately give the next task to the glory of God, and the next, and the next, and then you'll have a habit, a trend, a norm in the course of the day. He says because if we let that go, then we slip into the other way of being. But even this active offering of our life to God, this is a hard thing to retain, a hard thing to force our mind and our heart and our soul to do. And so he's about to offer another method, this meditation, as effectively a transition point from our prayers to the rest of the day. So it's not that we have 2 or 3 methods that are sort of, you can pick one and ignore the others. The 3 go together. And in a sense, St. Theophan starts with the one that's visible, the verbal prayer, speaking out, offering everything to God. But now we're approaching the foundational element, this reflection, meditation, as we leave our verbal prayers. Anyway, we'll get to that next time. But for now, let us simply remember, offering our entire life to God isn't just a matter of words. It isn't just a matter of intellectual assent. We need to incorporate our mind and our words and our heart and our entire being. And this takes work. And St. Theophan is talking about how that work goes. So, that's enough for now. I'll see you all shortly for day 3.